Hey guys, thought I would try something a little different and informal today. Earlier, I was in the midst of recording my latest video, Top 10 Hard Rock and Heavy Metal Albums of 1982. And in that video, I included Aerosmith's Rock in a Hard Place. Kind of an underrated album for them, I would say, due to the lack of Joe Perry and Brad Whitford, the band's legendary guitar players. I think a lot of people really didn't want to give it a chance when those guys left the band. But it's a great album, as I discuss in my video. But literally, as I was recording that segment, the news came down that Aerosmith was retiring from touring. The band issued a statement saying that Steven Tyler has simply not been able to recover from the vocal injuries that he has suffered. I'm just going to read briefly from the statement that the band put out. We've always wanted to blow your mind when performing. As you know, Steven's voice is an instrument like no other. He has spent months tirelessly working on getting his voice to where it was before his injury. We've seen him struggling despite having the best medical team by his side. Sadly, it is clear that a full recovery from this vocal injury is not possible. We have made a heartbreaking and difficult but necessary decision as a band of brothers to retire from the touring stage. Now, obviously, that leaves open the possibility of recording, so we'll see what happens. But this whole thing got me thinking about Aerosmith and their place in rock history, and I think it's a very important place that they hold. I started to think about hard rock bands, and particularly American hard rock bands. Most of my favorite bands are the classic British bands that got me into music in the first place. The Beatles, the Stones, the Who, Led Zeppelin, the list goes on and on. But I feel like the Americans really lack. The only bands I could think of were Aerosmith and Van Halen that could really be considered in the same league as those British bands that I mentioned. Now, of course, you've got the Doors, you've got the Beach Boys. There are great American bands, but when it comes to hard rock, Aerosmith and Van Halen are the ones that keep coming up for me. So I'd love to hear from you guys on this. What are your favorite American hard rock bands? What do you think of Aerosmith? Where do you think they rate on the scale? Personally, I've always looked at Aerosmith as 1/3 Rolling Stones, 1/3 Led Zeppelin, and 1/3 total originality. And that's a pretty damn good combination if you ask me. I mean, think about Steven Tyler. This guy was basically singing rap music before there was rap music. And what a great frontman. You had the dual guitars of Joe Perry and Brad Whitford. So good. Incredible rhythm section, Joey Kramer on drums, Tom Hamilton on bass. In a time when Led Zeppelin was singing about mythological and classical themes, such as Tolkien novels and Achilles, and Black Sabbath was singing about the occult, Aerosmith led a revival of good old-fashioned raunchy sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Then you've got Dream On, which was probably one of the first power ballads ever. These guys broke a lot of new ground. And beside all that, you've really got to hand it to these guys for being able to reinvent themselves and stay relevant up until literally today. Now, granted, my favorite Aerosmith will always be the 1970s Aerosmith. I never went much in for the big power ballads that they did later on. But still, it's really impressive how popular they've managed to be, weathering all the different trends in music, including grunge and whatever else came along. So that's about all for now. Hearing this news just made me think about Aerosmith and how important they were in my musical development. I mentioned this before in one of my videos, but the first rock song I ever learned to play was from this album, Rocks, probably Aerosmith's best album. So that was really special to me. But what do you guys think? Is Aerosmith an all-time great American hard rock band? Are they overrated? Some people accuse them of being too derivative of the Stones. I'd love to hear who you think the best American hard rock bands are. All right, see you soon.